Don't fall for the trap of turning your wheels while you're waiting at an intersection. A clip in the tail can bounce you into oncoming traffic, turning a minor accident into a serious one. Keep your wheels pointed straight ahead until it's clear for you to move. Don't cause confusion by last-minute lane changing. Plan ahead, and if you make a mistake, go round the block and try again. But if you do see someone else trying to change lanes, don't squeeze them out. A little thought and courtesy can make driving a whole lot safer for everyone. A lot of drivers are more cautious of kangaroos than pedestrians, but you must be aware of how easily a pedestrian can appear out of nowhere. Be especially careful when there are distractions, like a busy intersection. When you read the road ahead, include the footpath in your line of vision. If you're faced with a driving emergency, don't freeze on the brake. A lot of accidents can be driven around if you control your braking. While the wheels are locked, you might as well not have a steering wheel. The rule for night driving is see and be seen, and that means a clean windscreen, good windscreen wipers, and clean head and tail lights. If the road is muddy, you need to regularly clean your tail lights. Make a point of regularly checking your tyre pressures. An underinflated tyre not only wears faster, it has a lot less grip. In an emergency, the difference in grip of a soft tyre could take you onto the wrong side of the road and into an accident.
Today, at a mid-afternoon stop-work meeting, they decided to go out again tonight and stay out until Sunday night and ban weekend maintenance, following unsatisfactory progress at an earlier conference between unions and management. Comsteel's Chief Executive, Wilton Ainsworth, explained that rationalisation plans require the medical officer to also operate the workers' compensation computer system. Mr Ainsworth said the retrenched employee was not able to do this, but he was well qualified and respected as a medical officer. And the company offered to employ a nursing sister until ambulance men who work each shift are brought up to that same standard. Federated Ironworkers Association Secretary Len Corrigan explains why that plan was rejected.
It's not just a matter of somebody coming from a hospital or some nursing area and coming in looking after heavy industry. It's altogether different. It's a different ball game. And that's why we say that the person they've sacked was very competent and very experienced.
Nobody disagrees that the Frederick Ash building is a very old warehouse, but the National Trust members say it's also a special warehouse.
It is a warehouse, so it looks like a warehouse. It's important because of, one, the architect that did it, Frederick Menkins, important architect in terms of Newcastle. The other important things are its urban character, the way it relates to the urban character of Newcastle, the 2 to 3 stories of development that is along Hunter Street. It fits into that very well.
Barney Collins says the Trust called for interim conservation order early last year. Somehow, Council didn't find out about it until yesterday. By then, their architects were happily planning only to incorporate the building's Hunter Street facade into the new civic project. Nobody wants the order to interfere with a project that represents a pivotal development for the city and thousands of jobs. So today, Council Aldermen, the National Trust and Heritage Council resolved to decide what parts of the building will and won't stay as soon as possible. But could all this have been avoided? Was there a communication problem between Council and the National Trust?
There's definitely no communication problem between the Council and ourselves. Up until yesterday, perhaps there was.
Lord Mayor John McNaughton says the misunderstanding has been sorted out just in time.
If we hadn't found out about this, say, for another month, it would have been incredibly expensive. But the good news is we did find out about it. We've got all the major players all working very cooperatively and very well together, and I'm quite confident that we're going to get an exceptionally good result.
In the news tonight, an investigation has begun into the cause of a light airplane crash northwest of Merriwa last night. 2 Victorian men survived the crash, but have been admitted to Royal Newcastle Hospital.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
In a nerve-wracking 30 minutes, a young Warners Bay man has become Sale of the Century Interstate champion and some $230,000 richer. Dean Cupid, who once lost the lot on the same quiz show, talks about the thrill of being a winner.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
"32-year-old Dean Cupid, his wife Julie and their 2 children have been living with Julie's mother at Warners Bay. But after last night, they have a luxury house of their own at Surfers Paradise and a couple of cars to go with it. For Dean, last night's win in the Interstate Championship was a great comeback. 4 years ago, he was playing for about the same total prize money and lost the lot. Dean, who says he didn't do too well at school, has worked as a casual musician and, in his own words, has generally had the seat out of his pants. Today, he's still finding it hard to believe a few hours' work on television have set him up for life.
Well, it's sort of still hard to believe that I'd actually done it. I've always run second most of the times in my life, but last night I managed to pull a big one off.
How did Dean know the answers to so many questions? He says his father was an encyclopedia salesman, and for fun, Dean started reading encyclopedias when he was about 6 years old.
I think I must have a touch of a photographic memory because I seem to see the answers in my mind as I say them. I've seen my eyes roll back in my head a couple of times watching it, so I guess I'm trying to see it up there in the grey matter.
With the swell up, the waves rolled into Newcastle beaches fast as the crowds for the 7th day of the world's biggest surfing event. Both spectators and competitors were expecting a full day of fierce competition and nobody was disappointed. Round 3 of the main event saw 2 times world champion Tom Carroll manoeuvre his way into the quarterfinals, easily defeating USA's Wes Lane. In Heat 4, current world champion Tom Curran slashed past Dave McCauley, despite the Western Australian's 2 previous wins over the Californian. Surprise eliminations included Cronulla's Richard Marsh and reigning Surfest champ Mark Occhilupo, who lost his board twice, choosing to forego his leg rope. Into the quarterfinals, and Tom Carroll surfed past Hawaii's Derek Ho, scoring one of the highest results of the day. Martin Potter now goes on to the semis after he ousted Manly's Barton Lynch. He'll meet Brad Gerlach, who just pipped Robbie Bain by 1/10 of a point. And in a surprise result, Glenn Winton from the Central Coast will now challenge Tom Carroll after defeating Curran, who now drops out of the top 4 ratings. In the quarterfinals of the Coke Surf Trials, local Nicky Wood and Wollongong's Terry Richardson were both eliminated after the judges called a double interference, a legacy of 4-man heats. The 8 through to tomorrow's semi-finals are Matt Archbold, Rod Kerr, Vatia David, Sonny Garcia, Rob Page, Craig Pitchers, now leading the APSA ratings, Richard Marsh and Merrick Davis. Meanwhile, veteran surfer Nat Young retains his world crown after winning the Longboard Masters. And despite 2 setbacks this week, 17-year-old Nicky Wood took out the Peters Pacific Dreams Pro Junior. The young champ slashed through the event, showing the style that will no doubt make him a world champion.
Back off the touch, Dave.
It was the final of Surfest's main event, the BHP Steel International, that the 20,000-strong crowd had come to see. 2 times world champion Tom Carroll and the United Kingdom's Martin Potter, ranked 7th in the world, battled it out in the choppy conditions for the $6,000 first place. Despite a good start by Potter, Carroll grabbed an early lead, manoeuvring his way across the waves, showing his world champion style. Potter, choosing to hang back for the best selection, allowed Carroll to gain a definite edge. But the tides turned when Potter made a late comeback, performing some radical manoeuvres on his last waves. It was anyone's event until the judges' score was announced. Surfing his 3rd consecutive victory on the ASP circuit, Carroll became this year's winner of the BHP Steel International, just 0.2 of a point ahead of his rival.
State Finance Minister Bob Debus has accused Hunter Valley business leaders of undermining attempts to restructure Australian industry. Mr Debus attended a seminar at Newcastle University which looked at ways to improve Australia's international trading position. He said only a handful of business people bothered to attend.
For all the news, join us tonight at 6.
The Australian Constitution underpins many facets of our daily lives, from our judicial system to family life and industrial relations. But according to the Australian Constitutional Commission, more than half the Australian population don't even realise that we have a constitution. Unlike our American counterparts, who are made to learn their constitution and its amendments off by heart, most Australians would have never set eyes on the document and would only have a vague idea about what it might contain. According to the Secretary of the Constitutional Commission, Ian Cunliffe, the Constitution now is in desperate need of updating.
The Constitutional Commission is of the view that the Constitution has served us pretty well for 87 years, but now there are signs of wear and tear and we need to look to see whether changes need to be made.
The Federal Attorney-General recently announced that the government will hold a referendum towards the end of next year on updating the Constitution. People will have a say on the specific changes. Mr Cunliffe has been travelling around Australia handing out a new book which floats potential amendments. These were not just pulled out of a hat. 5 committees were set up to look into specific areas and they held hearings in 27 towns and cities.
There are very few guarantees at the moment in our Constitution that protect us from government. Very few of those things. The right to vote isn't guaranteed there. There isn't a guarantee there that if your property is taken away by government, at least state and local government, that you'll get fair compensation. And one of our advisory committees has gone around the country and taken submissions from people, and it has recommended that there should be more of those sorts of guarantees in the Constitution.
The feeling at the Lake Macquarie Council chamber last night was tense. The gallery was packed and the Mayor and Aldermen wanted the matter settled once and for all. Since a controversial plan for the Spears Point Multi-Purpose Centre was scrapped, 7 other proposals have been submitted. They include the upgrading of Greenpoint Park and Spears Point Park, the building of a large community hall at the Lake Macquarie Police Citizens Boys Club and a beach reclamation project for the Swansea headland, which would also fund the nearby Marine Studies Centre. At last night's meeting, the Mayor adjourned proceedings after members of the public were given the chance to address Council in support of the various proposals. Under the chairmanship of Alderman Edwards, the 21-member Bicentennial Committee, including 6 other aldermen, left the chamber for talks which would finally decide just where the $1 million grant would go. An hour later, the committee had reaffirmed its previous decision to support the beach reclamation project, incorporating the completion of the Marine Studies Centre at Swansea. The matter was then debated in Council. After heated and lengthy discussions, it was decided to back the proposal to improve what's been described as some of the most degraded beaches on the New South Wales coastline. The submission, now adopted as the Lake Macquarie Council's Bicentennial project, will be sent to the State Authority today.
Bans on paperwork and general duties went into force at Newcastle Fire Station from yesterday morning as firemen stepped up their campaign to have an extra 4 people employed for their control room. The firemen argue that the control room cannot meet the demands placed on operators by a vast extension of the territory they cover. The bans do not endanger public lives or property, and firemen are at pains to stress that firefighting duties will continue as usual. Late today, President of the Newcastle branch of the Firemen's Union, Bob Tate, said he was still hopeful of a favourable decision from arbitration hearings in Sydney.
We had a meeting in the court with Commissioner Patterson, with both parties, the New South Wales Fire Brigade Union and also the Board of Fire Commissioners. And the decision was put over till today at 2 o'clock, where the Commissioner Patterson would make a decision on it. Word has come through, the decision that he wants both parties to refer with one another and to try and have this matter settled without a third party, which would be Commissioner Patterson, being involved.
Like many people in the Tinilba Bay area, Rosemary Stevenson was attracted to Tinilba's peace, quiet and bushland setting. She says all this is now in jeopardy because a mining company plans to mine dunes which are virtually on their doorstep. She was first alerted to the plan by a small advertisement in a local paper, notifying of a proposal to mine the northern dunes of Tinilba Bay.
I didn't know where the northern dunes of Tinilba Bay were, so I went to council and asked where the northern dunes were. And they showed me the environmental impact study, and when I saw it I was astonished because the northern dunes is the west side of Tinilba Bay, which is right outside our house.
Mrs Stevenson says residents are opposing only the mining which is adjacent to the residential areas. Despite assurances by the company, the New South Wales Glass and Ceramic Silica Sand Users Association, that there will be a 10-metre buffer zone, residents still claim the mining will cause excess dust, noise and will destroy natural fauna and flora in the area.
Koalas, all the usual snakes and lizards and things like that. The birds are absolutely beautiful. We have also, in that bush area where they want to mine, we have 2 families of black cockies, which are protected. In the flowers, we've got flannel flowers, Christmas bells, black boys, numerous amount, which are also protected. And the mining company want to come and mine them all up.
Rosemary Stevenson says she's determined to fight the company to the end and is busy gathering signatures for a petition to hand to council. The president of the Sand Users Association, Alec Echt, said from Sydney that they would consider any objections that were put before council. He claims there would not be excess dust because they would only mine 2 hectares at a time, and flora and fauna would be restored in a regeneration program.